What's good, everyone? Happy Wednesday night. I'm back on a random night, but it's to do of course, one of my classic, come to be known as random horror videos. Last video I did was on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, as you may remember. And I did tell you that we're going to explore other films, and that's exactly what I plan on doing tonight. And I'm positioned in such a spot that you can pretty much pick out exactly what this video is going to be about tonight. That's right. Tonight's video is on the Friday the 13th franchise. We are going to be covering all 11 or 12. There are 12 Friday the 13th films. God, that's way too many. All right, so I have my trusty phone here with me. So we are going to break it down. Little did I know that you can actually break the films down based off of how you remember them. I said that backwards. I was always under the impression that I didn't know how to distinguish 4 through 6, but technically that's not accurate. So you'll find out what I mean in a little bit. So without further ado, analyzing the Friday the 13th film franchise. Try saying that 5 times fast. All right, for those of you that live under a rock or not into horror and are just completely void of the world, Friday the 13th, an iconic horror series featuring, of course, one Jason Voorhees, who, of course, is known for his hockey mask. And, of course, I'll even dip it so you can see my Camp Crystal Lake. Yes, I am quite a fan. And also makes good decor around the house, right? My entire living room is full of horror stuff. All right. So Friday the 13th, of course, the main villain, the main protagonist, the main character, one Jason Voorhees. And pretty much the premise of Friday the 13th is how many people can Jason kill at Camp Crystal Lake over the span of an hour and 30 to 2-hour long movie. And change my mind, right? I'm that guy at the booth. Change my mind. That's what the films are about. Are they not? Okay. Friday the 13th, the original film, the one that started it all, of course, we all know it's iconic for 2 reasons, right? One, because it started the Friday the 13th franchise, but also it's the only film to not feature Jason Voorhees, because his mother was the killer in the first one. We, of course, know this because in the 1996 film Scream, Drew Barrymore's character is asked by Ghostface, "What's your favorite scary movie?" And then, of course, she's asked who was the killer in Friday the 13th. And immediately, before he could even really finish, she says, Jason, it's Jason. And Ghostface corrects her. And she's like, no, you're wrong. And no, it was the mother. It was Mrs. Voorhees. Pamela Voorhees was the killer in Friday the 13th. The first film came out on May 9th, 1980. I was not here yet, folks. I was not here yet. So, and of course, it was directed by Sean S. Cunningham, and that's really the only film of the series that he directed. I think he just made the film and dipped, right? So, of course, Camp Crystal Lake is where all the magic happens, right, in this film series. Pamela Voorhees knew the Christie family who owned Camp Crystal Lake. And, of course, why is Mrs. Voorhees killing people at Camp Crystal Lake? Because she went crazy after the death of her son, Jason. And why did Jason drown? Because I believe he was mentally challenged, or he was disfigured. We know that. Could it be mentally disturbed? I don't know. And based off of what we're calling it, right? And basically, Camp Crystal Lake counselors too busy singing Kumbaya and having sex, and they let him drown. So she comes back years later and kills all the camp counselors for screwing around. And what does Jason do when he comes back? Of course, he kills all the camp counselors. And what are they usually doing? They're usually having sex. So, hey, the man knows why he was killed. You got to give him credit for that, right? All right, so Friday the 13th, it's iconic. Of course, it's the best. It's the best. It started everything, right? Just like the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Friday the 13th started it all, and it has a final girl in it, doesn't it? I will actually bring that up. I believe Adrienne King, if I'm not mistaken. Adrienne King, who plays Alice. Alice, of course, is on the boat. She falls asleep. She wakes up. Jason comes out of the water as a boy, disfigured boy, takes her, but she wakes up and she's in the hospital, and she asks the sheriff, "What about the boy? What about Jason?" There was no boy. Hence what starts the possibility of a sequel, right? So Adrienne King, she's the final girl. But if I remember correctly, she actually dies in the second one, in the opening. Possibly? We'll probably find out, won't we? Also, Kevin Bacon is in this. Like Johnny Depp in Friday the 13th, who falls asleep with a 50-pound television on top of him and gets sucked into his waterbed. Kevin Bacon is killed by Mrs. Voorhees. But in a nutshell, Friday the 13th, the first film, it's iconic. It's a classic. It has to be in your top, right? Of course. Friday the 13th, Part 2. Mrs. Voorhees is dead. Someone else is now killing at Camp Crystal Lake. And it's a man in a burlap sack, with a burlap sack on his head, right? Indeed it is. So yes, Alice Hardy is recovering from her traumatic experience in her apartment. When Alice opens the refrigerator to get her cat some food, she finds the severed head of Pamela Voorhees and is murdered with an ice pick to her temple by an unknown intruder. So imagine how many films can say that. Think about this. We all know the iconic cliche of the final girl, right? It's the last girl in the film, in a horror franchise, in a horror movie, who you know is going to live. Jennifer Love Hewitt, and I Know What You Did Last Summer. I want to say Alice in Nightmare on Elm Street could have the same name as her. Basically, there's always a final girl. Friday the 13th, however, is like, you know what? Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween. If final girls are a thing, it ain't our thing. Whoosh, ice pick to the head for Adrienne King, right? Takes Alice out of the series. And who is the man in the burlap mask? Well, that's Jason. We already know that. Fun fact, Jason doesn't get the iconic mask here until film 3. What are my thoughts on 2, though? 2's good. I feel like, obviously, the first one's a classic, so it's like, okay, we gotta see if we can make the second one better, right? That one came out a year later, literally almost a year later, May 1st, 1981. They put these suckers out like once every year or 2 years. It's crazy, right? I like the second one because obviously you know it's Jason, but at the same time you kind of forget, right? I'll try to refrain from saying at the same time because I tend to repeat myself in my words. I do apologize. I am only human. I'm trying to up my vocabulary when it comes to being on lives. The second one, we know it's Jason in the mask, right? In the burlap sack, sorry. But we forget at times, right? Because different people play Jason. That's another thing I will address after I break down the films. I will break down Jason as a whole because that just requires its own discussion. But you forget it's Jason just because he's dressed like a farmer and he's wearing a burlap sack on his head. Could literally be anyone. Back in 1981, we didn't know who it was. Right? But to me, two is solid. Great film. Three is iconic for its own reason. Because in 3, we are introduced to the iconic hockey mask. Fun fact, I don't watch hockey. And one thing that I didn't quite understand was how that was called a hockey mask. Because, watching hockey now, you see they have those giant, grid helmets on, right? So I'm like, why do they call it a hockey mask? I've never seen a hockey player wearing that mask. But apparently they did back in the day. Oh, okay, that makes sense, right? I also actually have that mask as a light. It's actually on right. It's right over there. I turned my tablet around for you to see it, but don't want to mess this up. So 3's iconic just for the fact that he finds the mask, right? 3 is also the one. Let's see. Hold on a second here. Let me bring something up. Again, I'll address the whole Jason thing as a whole, but I think it's worth noting Jason's not in the first one. Well, he is as a boy, but in the second Friday the 13th film, Jason is played by Warrington Gillette. In the third one, he is played by, I want to say, Ted White. Let's see if I got that right. Jason is played by... Oh, no, Richard Brooker. I apologize. Okay. So 3 is the one where, obviously, Jason's got the iconic mask. Again, it seems like they're on a farm. And, again, it's absolutely iconic. I love it. My only issue is Jason himself. Because aside from the mask, the guy that plays him, Richard Brooker, is just jacked. Like, he's just stoned. He's stoic. And also, he grunts. And he looks very human, because obviously, to this point, he's going to look human, right? That's not my issue isn't the fact that he looks human. It's the fact that when he gets stabbed, like, he grunts. And it's like, I guess I don't have an issue with it, but it's weird. Because I don't really think that Jason really grunts or shows that he's hurt in any other film but 3. That's my only issue. It's minor. Other than that, it's absolutely iconic because he gets the mask. The deaths in that are just ridiculous. They get more ridiculous as the film series goes on. But in my opinion, the first 3, absolutely iconic. But then, as I looked this up earlier, I was like, I can't remember 4 through 6 because why am I forgetting 4 through 6? And then I remembered Tommy Jarvis. Hot take, I'm not a fan of the Tommy Jarvis character. We are first introduced to Tommy Jarvis in 4 in Friday the 13th, the final chapter, which of course we know is not the final chapter because they wanted to continue this shit, didn't they? So we are introduced to Tommy Jarvis, who of course the directors and producers want to give Jason an arch enemy. So they give him Tommy Jarvis, this little boy played by Corey Feldman, of all people, right? You think that would be the reason I don't like the character? That's not really. That's like the second reason, right? Maybe the third. I don't know. Like, he's not a bad character, but he's very much into horror, obviously. We see him, he tries on masks and stuff. I don't know. I'm not a fan of Tommy Jarvis. That's as much as I can say. Other than that, the third one is great because obviously Jason's got the mask now. He's still doing what he does best, killing people at Camp Crystal Lake, and I think beyond that too, right? So then, of course, we assume that Jason is killed by Tommy Jarvis, but that's not the case, is it? Because then we have Friday the 13th, A New Beginning. Once again, Tommy Jarvis, this is years later. Corey Feldman not playing him anymore. It's now played by, give me a minute, John Shepard. But Corey Feldman plays him at 12, obviously. So, and then Jason, of course, is played by, I'm going to go over Jason after I go through all the films. But just to get an idea here, in the final chapter, which is the first one with Tommy Jarvis, Jason is played by Ted White, okay, who's uncredited, mind you. In A New Beginning, Jason is played by Tom Morga. John Hawk appeared as Jason Voorhees in the opening dream sequence because Morga was unavailable when the scene was shot. Huh, I like that. All right, A New Beginning, it's years later. Tommy Jarvis is a teenager now, and he thinks he's killed Jason, and now he's in an institution, and he finds out that he hasn't killed Jason, right? Because now someone else is going on a violent killing spree. So in this one I don't like this one because technically Jason's not really in it, right? This one you find out that there's a guy. Hold on. Make sure I get this right. So Tommy Jarvis is like Jason's back and he's killing people, and everyone thinks he's crazy. Part of them think that he might be the killer. Wink, wink. But then, of course, the mask of Jason comes off, and it's not Jason, and it's not Tommy. It's Roy Burns, who was one of the paramedics who arrived at the scene of this kid named Joey. The police later identified Roy as Joey's father. So when Joey died, Roy Burns went crazy because his son died, and he became Jason and started killing people in an act of revenge. So technically, if you think about it, Jason's not even in this. So that's technically the second film in which Jason's not in, right? Also, the end of this film, Tommy appears behind the door wearing Roy's hockey mask and wielding a kitchen knife. I always kind of wondered about this. It's like, technically, it looks like they're trying to imply that Tommy Jarvis is going to become Jason and he's going to become the next hockey mask killer. But then they don't really do anything with it in the next film, do they? But yeah, again, it's got Tommy Jarvis, so I'm kind of like, I'm not really feeling it, right? The next one, of course, did I just do that one? Which one are we at? It's so confusing. Roman numerals piss me off. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, 6. I did say 4 through 6. For the third time, Tommy Jarvis in his final film, also played by a completely different actor. This one's good because I like this one out of all the ones that have Tommy Jarvis in it because Jason's back. But you want to know how Jason becomes resurrected again? Tommy Jarvis goes to the cemetery thinking, you know what, I'm going to make sure this sucker's dead. And he takes a metal pole and he drives it through Jason's stomach, right? Problem is, it was a lightning storm. and it strikes the lightning pole. The electrical volts go into Jason, thus resurrecting him. Great job, Tommy. You had one job, right? So then, of course, Tommy Jarvis, who was just escaped from an institution, and he meets this girl who's the actual daughter of the sheriff, and immediately the sheriff's like, son, Jason's dead. You're the killer, right? People start getting killed, and immediately the sheriff's like, this kid is taking over for Jason. But of course, we know that Jason is actually, he's alive again, right? And Tommy must try to kill him for once and for all. So he does, not really, but it's the last appearance we see of Tommy Jarvis, right? Drives Jason to the bottom of Crystal Lake where he's got a, a concrete brick and chain holding him down, and he's into the water trying to free himself. Of all the three that have Tommy Jarvis in it, I like this one best. Is it because this is the last one he appears in? Maybe. Maybe. But I just like the way it's done, right? It's just also Jason's actually in this one, so maybe that's why too. Then we get to 7, the New Blood. So you see how I've this. Remember I mentioned it's hard to distinguish them? That's how I remember now. There's the first 3. 1 doesn't have Jason in it. 2, Jason's wearing a burlap sack. 3, the iconic mask comes into play. 4, 5, and 6 have Tommy Jarvis in them. It's a good way to remember. 7, if you forget how to remember 7, just remember Tina, the telekinetic, who has the powers. I remember when I first heard about this, someone had mentioned it to me when I was a kid or a teenager, right? And they're like, "Oh yeah, the 7th one," or there's one of them. What's the one with Tina, the girl with psychic powers? And I'm like, what? I'm like, I don't know. I've never seen that. And then I saw it and I was like, yeah, this is stupid. But I've seen it a few times since. And is it kind of corny? Yes. But at the same time, it kind of works. Because if you think about it, up until 6, for 6 films, who has Jason really gone against, right? He didn't go against Alice. He knocked her off with an ice pick in her own house. Tommy Jarvis is pretty much the only arch enemy that he's really known. He's never really had in how much of a threat was he really, you know? So technically, aside from a bunch of meddling teenagers, to quote Scooby Doo, he hasn't really had a formidable foe to go against. Insert Tina Shepard, right? Tina Shepard is telekinetic. She can move things with her mind, kind of like Carrie. And the first time she uses her powers on Jason, and Jason's just kind of like, what the hell? What the hell are you? People ask what I am. What are you? Right? And of course, in typical fashion, she uses her powers, and I believe they're at Camp Crystal Lake once again, and Tina's in a bind. Jason's ready to kill her, and Tina uses her powers to summon the force of her dead father out of Camp Crystal Lake and bring Jason down into the water with him. I actually like this film. I've seen it a few times. I have a little bit of an appreciation for it now. Because again, like I just broke it down for you, other than Tommy Jarvis, we don't really see a person challenge Jason. I would also argue that Jarvis doesn't really challenge Jason the way that Tina does. Then we get to my favorite Friday the 13th film, which at this point I have to imagine people are like, Justin, how do you like 8 more than any of the other films? I don't know. I don't have a logically good explanation for you, other than the fact that it's called Jason Takes Manhattan. And the funny part is, most of the film doesn't actually take place in Manhattan, right? It takes place on a boat on the was it the the New York River there, whatever the hell it's called, right? Um, yeah, the film follows Jason as he stalks a group of teenagers on a boat to New York City. To New York City, right? Eventually, they do get to New York, but like, there's at least 3/4 of the film that take place on the boat, in the water, on the way to New York. But you can't call the movie Friday the 13th 8. Jason kills people on a boat on his way to New York. That's too much. Like, okay. Also, this is the second straight film in which I think Kane Hodder plays Jason. Kane Hodder, of course, became iconic for playing Jason. I think he played him in 3 films. So that's interesting. And I don't even have to look at this one because I've seen 8, probably more times than any of them. Like it said, Jason is on a boat with some teenagers. And this one, of course, I do have to look up the characters though. Um, Rennie is on this school trip with her classmates, and Peter Mark Rickman, who I believe was in an old Twilight Zone episode, iconic actor. He plays a teacher, but I believe he's also Rennie's father or stepfather, and he's very protective of her. He told her stories about Jason drowning when she was a kid. Great story to tell your kid, right? And Rennie doesn't have powers, but she kind of has like foreshadowing, or like she can see images, I guess. She sees images of Jason and all that as a boy. Um Basically, the kills in this movie are awesome. You have the rocker girl, like you kind of know how she's gonna die, right? Like she's down in the boiler, just playing on her guitar, and it's like this bitch is gonna get killed with her own guitar, right? You know it's gonna happen, and sure enough, uh, then of course there's the dumb blonde, or the girl that hits on the teacher. I think she's let's the stuck up girl. I'm sorry for saying dumb blonde. She's the one who's kind of snobby, uptight. The camera guy is always filming her because he likes her, and basically she ends up getting killed. They all end up getting killed except for Rennie and Scott. No, excuse me, Sean. Rennie and Sean, because I think they used to date. Go figure, right? Uh, Also, there's my favorite scene in this movie. There's two. I have 2 favorite scenes in this. 3 favorite scenes in this movie. Right. This is why it's my favorite. Um, there's this black guy who's a part of the class, and he's a boxer. I guess he was on um, the boxing team, and he's up on the roof. Jason just looks like he's just dripping water, ooze. Like he's just Jason looks like he came out of like a sauna, right? Jacked, looks just gross, just drenched. And with his bare hands, this kid, I forgot his name, Julius, I think, starts boxing him, and he gets some good punches on Jason, but it's you're punching dead, you're punching a watery dead carcass, you know. He punches his mask. He gets some excellent shots in on him, and Jason's just sitting there, just like taking it, like. And then he gets to the edge, and then Jason just literally takes him, punches him, I think, and then takes him and just hucks him off the roof. I just love that. Like it's just so funny. The second scene that I like, they finally land in New York, and the teacher, uh, played by Peter Mark Rickman, Charles McCulloch, uh, they're in an alleyway, and in an alley, of course, there's always that burning metal barrel. Only there's not a burning metal. It's not burning. It's not. It's not on fire. There's like sewage, toxic waste in this. God knows what, in this metal barrel. Jason takes them and just stuffs them in there. And it's like totally gross, but awesome at the same time, right? My third and final favorite scene in this film, Jason's walking the streets of Manhattan, and he comes across, it's a GIF, for Christ's sakes, on social media, and these punk kids are listening to like their boombox, and Jason comes around and kicks the boombox, and then they take with their knife, and they're like, "Hey, buddy, you're gonna pay for that." And Jason just turns around, pulls up his mask, and they're like, "Whoa, whoa, okay, it's cool, it's cool," and he just keeps walking. Also, it's the only one of the Friday the 13th films to have like a true soundtrack, which is kind of cool. But yeah, enough about me gushing about 8 and why it's good. Jason dies in this one very tragically, actually. Um, Rennie and Sean go down to the sewers, and they come across a guy, and the guy's like, "What are you doing? This toxic waste is going to come through here." And toxic waste just takes Jason, eats him away, and then he's just a shriveling little boy again as Rennie looks at it and sees. And that's the last we see of Jason. Or is it? We know it's not, right? Then of course we have 9. Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday. I would also argue that this is the only film, 9, that this is the first and only film that doesn't say, that's not called Friday the 13th. It's just simply called Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday. It doesn't lead off with Friday, right? You know what's funny? Love 8. I hate 9. The beginning of 9 starts off great, right? Jason's in a field. Do we understand how he gets resurrected at this point? At Camp Crystal Lake, Jason Voorhees stalks a woman. The woman, an undercover FBI agent. They're trying to entrap Jason. Oh, that's hilarious. No. So, toxic waste took Jason out in 8. What's funny is, if you read them, um, Wikipedia and another website, it's funny to just go on there just to see how they explain how Jason gets resurrected and brought back from each film. After a while, they're just like, they stop it. Wikipedia stops explaining it, and there's another website that just says like, yeah, we don't know how hell he gets resurrected in this one, but he just does, right? It might even be 9, because 9 doesn't even explain it. Like, he got killed with the toxic waste in 8, and here he is back at Camp Crystal Lake like nothing happened in 9. So Jason's lured to an open field where SWAT and FBI use a grenade launcher and blow him to smithereens, right? He dead. But that happens at the beginning of the film, so how does he come back to life? Well, this is why I don't like 9. Basically, they pick up pieces of Jason, including his heart, which is apparently still beating. Go figure, right? Also, this is the one that's got the magical dagger, and the only person that can kill Jason once and for all is someone from his family, which is so freaking stupid, because it's like you had 8 films, and now you're telling me that you don't explain how he got brought back from the dead for the 8th time, right? For the 9th time. And on top of that, you just randomly decide to throw in a storyline and a plot into a storyline where, oh, someone from his family has to kill him. Then they can stop him then he'll be stopped once and for all. Okay, but aside from his mother, we're not. It's never entered. Like, none of his family's ever mentioned aside from his mother. So again, I don't. Excuse me. I don't like those plots where it takes them like 9 films to be like, oh, hey, by the way, yeah. I would actually compare this to the ninth Fast and the Furious film, when we find out that Dom has a brother played by John Cena. It's like it's never mentioned in 8 films, and now you're suddenly going to bring it up. This is the same thing to me. Only this happened years ago, right? Jason was made. Friday. This film was made years before um, the Fast and the Furious films. But it's like, really, you're gonna wait until 9 films to mention another family member of Jason Voorhees, and they have to be the one to stop him once and for all? How convenient. Kind of sounds very Do Ex Machina like. It's like we don't know how we can stop Jason, so we're just gonna throw that in there. Um, the reason I really, really, really hate this film is because apparently one of the police officers looks down at the heart and that possesses him. And to make matters worse, he decides to eat the heart. Like, that's gross. Like, eating a heart in itself is disturbing and gross, but eating Jason Voorhees' heart, which is black and gross and God knows what else, is really gross. And he eats it and he becomes Jason, because anybody who eats Jason's heart becomes possessed. So eventually the heart, they throw up the heart, someone else picks it up, eats it. It's gross. Like, whoever thought of this is just, they're nuts. Um, Adam Marcus, maybe? Dean Laurie, whoever. It's just, blech. I don't even remember the rest of the film, to be honest with you. I just remember the whole, like, oh, they need the magical dagger, and it's going to be someone from his family to kill him. Okay. And is coming around because people are eating and ingesting his heart. Okay, that's not gross. Not a fan of that one. Then we get to Jason X. Justin, you hate Jason X, right? I don't. I think it's awesome. But let me explain something. If you consider it and you treat it as a parody and you separate it from the rest of the 9 films, it's good. It's kind of like, I would compare Jason X to Wes Craven's A New Nightmare, right? Like, it's sort of part of the Nightmare on Elm Street universe, but at the same time it's not, because it's technically taking place outside of that universe. Jason X, its X is obviously for 10, but like, it takes place 445 years later. Jason is cryogenically frozen and he wakes up on a spaceship. He's he becomes Robo Jason or Cyber Jason, and of course he kills people on a spaceship. That sounds absolutely ridiculous when I say it. But again, if you look at it from my perspective as a parody and you separate it from the other 9 films, you can sort of appreciate it for what it is. It's a funny comedy horror film. Also, Jason X is where I think one of my favorite horror scenes, one of my favorite death scenes happen, which is, of course, one of the guys in the ship uses his computer to simulate Jason back at Camp Crystal Lake, where he comes across these 2 girls who are like, hey, want to have premarital sex? And they start making out. And then they end up in a sleeping bag. Jason zips it up. He then takes the 2 girls in the sleeping bag and bashes it against the tree in what is probably one of the most ridiculously awesome death scenes you would ever have in a movie. I'm sorry if that upsets some people, but I think it's funny. I'm sure it was meant to be funny when they made it, right? If you don't take Jason X seriously and connect it with the rest of the 9 films, it kind of works well on its own, is what I'm saying. It kind of stands alone. It is what it is, right? Then we have Freddy versus Jason. Now, I feel like a lot of people are very, they either like it or they don't like it, right? I like it because obviously at the time, oh, Freddy Krueger's going to go against Jason Voorhees. Sign me up. It kind of makes you wish that we got more films, right? Like Michael Myers versus Jason. Who'd win that? Or maybe even Chucky, which of course I know some people are like, it's a doll. Chucky can do a lot of damage for a doll. Um, Freddy versus Jason is great. The thing that I particularly like about this film, the final girl is kind of badass. What's her name? Monica Keena, who plays um, Laurie Campbell. And I believe Jason Ritter is in this one. Am I wrong? Yeah, Jason Ritter plays her boyfriend. Um, but basically, they have to stop. Is it Freddy that has to be stopped or Jason that has to be stopped? Oh, that's right. Okay. So Freddy can't kill people anymore. So he enlists the help of Jason. But you already know how Jason is. He's very gun ho, kills people himself. Freddy gets pissed off halfway through, realizing, well, I can't kill anybody if this guy is killing everyone before I can get a chance to, right? Hence the showdown. My favorite part in this scene is when Jason's sleeping. I think he get knocked out through like 50 tranquilizers, however many tranquilizers you need to knock him down. And he's sleeping. And so he's in Freddy's dream world. And Freddy creates water. And Jason is like trapped in it. He can't get in. He's, oh, you do have a weakness. And I'm like, huh. They decided to use water as Jason's weakness, which kind of makes sense. Because of the whole Crystal Lake water thing, because he drowned. Like it took you 11 films to do it, but goddamn, that's a great idea, right? So yeah, like obviously because it's the whole showdown between one classic horror villain to another, I like the film. Also, the death scene at the end where Monica Keena cuts off Freddy's head, and then Jason just takes it and drags it into the water. Awesome. My overall thoughts on the film of the franchise, I like it. It's one of my favorite horror franchises. Obviously, I don't need to tell you that. I I would say out of the 11 films, I like most of them. Obviously, I like the first three. I'm not particularly a fan of 4, 5, and 6 because of Tommy Jarvis. I like 7. I love 8. Not a fan of 9. 10 I like as a parody separate from the rest of the films. And I like Freddy vs. Jason. So there's a lot of good sequels in that. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, right? Jason Voorhees. Let's go back to him. Why is he played by so many people? Because when you have a character that can be portrayed behind a mask, you can pretty much have multiple people play it and get away with it and not have to worry. Kane Hodder is the only person that I believe had played Jason more than twice. I think he played him 3 times. Then Warrington Gillette, Richard Richard Broker, Ted White. There's a couple Ken Kesinger played him in Freddy vs. Jason. So, and then Derek Mears, I believe, played him in. I didn't discuss the new one. Very briefly, hot take, which I might have for another video. Most horror reboots don't suck. I know that's a hot take. We might have to save that for another video. Friday the 13th reboot, I don't hate it. It's got Daniel Panamaker in it. It's got Jared Padalecki from Supernatural. I don't hate it. I'm sorry. I think the reason that I liked it is because, like the second film, it kind of sort of has like the whole like, oh, when one of the characters brings up his mother, and that stops him dead in his tracks. It's like, okay, so not only is water his weakness, but you mentioned his mother, and he's kind of like, oh, wait a minute here. So to me, it kind of makes him like from a psychological, emotional standpoint, like you can reach Jason if you mention his mother. I think that's kind of cool, and the reboot kind of does that. So, and of course, it's always good for the kills, just like every other Friday the 13th film. So, in a nutshell, I like the franchise. Back to Jason before I wrap this up because my God, it's been almost been 50 minutes. The one thing that I know I'm not the only person. I'm sure there's a whole discussion on it on Reddit. In fact, I know there is. Uh, but why is Jason? If Jason died as a boy, how is he a grown ass man out killing people? I thought about this for years, right? I came to the conclusion on my own before I even read it. In read it, get it? Ah, didn't even mean to rhyme there. Okay, in all seriousness, basically, I was under the impression that he didn't really die. That was my first theory. Jason doesn't really die. He just kind of wanders off into the woods, lives as a hermit, eats bugs, plants, maybe people. I don't freaking know. But he never really dies, and yeah. The second reason I think that he's a grown man is because his soul technically wants, basically, in a magical way or whatever, the world wants Jason to avenge his own death. And he's resurrected as a grown man. Kind of what he would look like if he was a grown man. It sounds stupid, but again, I'm sure there's crazier theories out there, but that's mine. Also, he looks like a lumberjack in 2 when his burlap sack mask comes off. I always say he looks like a lumberjack. It's the scene where he crashes through the window. He looks like a lumberjack, full on. Long hair, like it's weird. I do hope you enjoyed this little bit of a long video on the Friday the 13th uh, film franchise. I do hope you enjoyed it, and I had fun discussing it. I hope I didn't bore anyone. I hope I didn't offend anyone. I don't think I did. If you enjoyed this video, do of course be sure to hit the subscribe button so you can see anytime that I go live. And I will in fact be going live once again soon, maybe tomorrow, and I will be discussing someone who I actually just mentioned, Freddy Krueger, and I will be discussing the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, which I finally saw in its entirety for the first time last year. So you can get my analyzation and thoughts on that coming up. But again, this has been analyzing the Friday the 13th film franchise. Have a good one.